So hello everyone, and welcome to the beginning of my developer diary for BoostBoy, working title. So basically I'm working on a video game, and I've already worked on a few video games in the past, but they never actually saw completion. So I'm basically doing this video series just to basically put my foot down and say, okay, this is a game I'm working on, and if I'm making a video series about this, like as a diary, basically just talking about what I've been doing the past few weeks or whatever, if I'm making videos like these and I make them public, you guys can hold me to it that I will actually go and complete this, because if I'm not making a video for like 2 months or whatever, you can be like, hey, what's happening with that game? And I can be like, well, you know, I guess I'll have to work on it. So this is kind of like the main reason why I'm doing this. So what I'm going to talk about right now is basically the core idea behind it, so that I can say like, hey, this is what I was like when I started making this whole thing, what my idea behind it was. And then maybe if this thing gets finished, I hope that maybe something playable, like demo or whatever, gets out by the end of the year at least. It's like my New Year's resolution is 4K. I got a new monitor, but I also wanted to see that I can get BoostBoy, something playable out in this year. And my idea basically starting this entire thing is that I really like platformers. I really like 2D platformers, 3D platformers, all of them. And I always wanted to make a platformer that was really fast and complex, but that doesn't really have to be like a super difficult, like 1 pixel misalignment will kill you instantly on like the very first level already. I wanted to make a game that can still be sort of played through by everyone. But if you are really, really good with the controls, you can do some absolutely crazy shit and go completely bonkers. Because I'm also a speedrunner. But I don't like it when people say, oh, I'm gonna make a game for speedrunners, and they make them like speedrunners or whatever. I don't actually think those are good speedrunning games. I don't think speedrunners is a good speedrunning game at all. Or it's not even a game that, in my opinion, describes what speedrunning really is in a really good way. Because just having a set of jumps before you and the game just basically saying, do these jumps as fast as possible. That's, I mean, you're going fast, sure, but that's not really what speedrunning is about, because you're removing a lot of the ideas behind speedrunning, which is that once you become a master of the game, you start viewing all the options that the game gives you in such a drastically different light that you can use all the tools the game gives you in such an incredible way to completely break through everything. I don't mean just glitch your way to the end, but I mean like doing some crazy stuff that people who just start playing the game would never be able to do. Not because I'm saying, oh, because they're bad at the game, but rather because they never really thought about that. Kind of like Super Mario Odyssey. When you play Odyssey, you start the game, you've got exactly the same tools that you have at the end of the game. But at the end of the Mario Odyssey, you're doing some absolutely crazy jumps, like crazy combinations with throwing Cappy, jumping on Cappy, doing Cappy again, doing sidewards jumps. You do all sorts of crazy stuff with Cappy at the end of the game. You could do all of those at the beginning of the game, but you're not good enough to realize that that's what you can actually do with Cappy. You sort of learn to understand the game better. And this is something that I want to sort of incorporate into my game as well. Of course, you don't need to know all this crazy stuff with Cappy to beat Mario Odyssey. For 100%, maybe you need a little bit here and there, but for the most part, you don't really need it. But if you do know all the crazy stuff you can do with Cappy, you can become a super incredible speedrun and do all sorts of crazy stuff to completely like blasts all the game's levels wide open for you to do whatever it is you want in them. And that is what I'm trying to sort of incorporate into this. And to bring it back to when I say like I don't like games that are like just being made for speedrunners. Usually games that are made for speedrunners, they just have like an obstacle course and then basically say, okay, you can do a jump, a double jump, and you can dash. And now I'm gonna give you a timer and you're just gonna beat it as fast as possible. That's not really a speedrun game, because usually, I mean, not all those games are like that, but usually those games end up being like, okay, you get more pixel perfect movement, you get a better understanding of the flow of the game, but are you really doing something drastically different than someone who's just started playing the game? Not really, you're just doing it faster. There's a game recently that I played, I forgot what its name is, but there's a game that I recently played, Remnants of Naisif, I think they were called, something like that. Let me look them up right now. Remnants of Naisif, exactly. That's like a sort of like a game for speedrunners, kind of like. I love grapple games, and I love really difficult games. I think I still have the world record in the game Grapple, but I didn't like that game that much because I didn't really feel like when I played that game that I was progressively learning new interesting ways to like deal with the game's mechanics. I was just using them a bit faster. Like I've played a lot of grapple games in my life, a lot of 2D grapple games, so none of the stuff that game does is like news to me. Like I've pretty much already seen exactly everything that I can do with the grapple at the start. I played it for like a bunch of time, and I never really got that I was learning new stuff. I just had more difficult levels that required me to do the stuff more precisely, that needed me to do it faster, that needed me to do it with better control. And that is not very interesting to me. I like I said earlier with Super Mario Odyssey, where you just gradually uncover more that the controls give you. To some degree, Ukulele does this, where if you've played some older games like Donkey Kong Country, you know that you can roll off a ledge and then still jump. In this game, in Ukulele, you can twirl off a stage and then still do a double jump into a flutter. You can use the flutter, because when you start a flutter, you get a tiny bit of height. You can use that to basically triple jump, and there are some places where that extra bit of height actually helps you. Like, it's not a whole lot, it's just a little bit. But I mean, when I can say Ukulele that has a better job of introducing controls than something like Remnants of Neosy, which is supposed to be like the golden indie, not the golden indie game, but it's supposed to be an indie game. And you know, indie games are supposed to be really good. And I kept getting off on a tangent. Anyway, I'm just rambling. But anyway, also now that I mentioned Ukulele, I need to also say that I don't like Ukulele nearly as much as Hat in Time, which I think is the absolute perfect game to incorporate this, because Hat in Time, if I ever make a game control as well as Hat in Time does, my development career will be finished, because there will be nothing better that I can ever make. Like, I think the controls of Hat in Time are almost perfect. I don't think you can humanly achieve anything better, and the camera is also pretty much perfect. I don't think I can ever achieve anything close to that. So yeah, not that people are gonna be in comments like, oh my god, this guy like Ukulele, no, there's no way whatever he's gonna try and make is gonna be good. Well, I like Hat in Time way more. Anyway, now that I've talked about so many tangents, but I mean, those tangents were important because they're basically giving you an idea of what I'm trying to achieve with my game. So the game is supposed to be a 2D jump run, and it's not just going to be any 2D jump run, it will be a dual stick jump run. A dual stick jump run? How is that supposed to work? Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind, Raz? Dual stick jump run? How could that possibly work? Well, I don't know if it can work yet, but I'll find out. So basically the idea that I had was, of course, you control a character, you can jump, maybe you can double jump after getting an upgrade, maybe you can dash. But when I think about controls and I think about the depths of controls, I also think to myself, I want to have the ability to go really fast if I know what I'm doing. And I was thinking about the basic moveset that you have, like jump, double jump, a dash maybe. I was like, I don't think we've done enough stuff with the dash yet. I'm going to call it a boost instead, because we're not just dashing on the ground. I'm going to make a game about boosting. And what I'm going to do is, you can jump, double jump, and you can boost, but you can boost in any of 8 directions. I want to keep it to 8, so you can also play it with keyboard and mouse. I'm not going to say, like, we're going to play dual stick on gamepad as like the intended way, but I'm not going to say like, well, you need all the 65,000 directions that a control stick can give you. I'm going to give you 8 instead, so that you can also play it completely, perfectly fine with keyboard and with just keyboard, and you're gonna be totally fine with that. Because I also like, it's weird, some Flash games I really enjoy more playing with keyboard and mouse than if I try and like play them with gamepad. And on other 2D jump runs, it's completely the opposite. Like Ori and the Blind Forest, I would never want to play with mouse and keyboard. I keep saying mouse and keyboard, but just keyboard, you know what I mean. So did I actually play Ori with mouse and keyboard? I don't remember, but I think I remember that I liked it more with gamepad, but I think I might have actually played with mouse and keyboard instead. That's beside the point. So you're gonna be able to boost in all 8 directions at any point when you're on the ground, when you're in midair. Of course, I'm gonna give you a limit. You can't boost like 10 million times and just fly over the stage. That would be stupid. That's not like make like a temporary power up. Of course, I'm still like figuring out stuff that I want to do with the game. But I thought that maybe you can maybe like start the game, you can boost once, and then you have to touch the ground again or touch a wall, and then you can boost again. The boost would also start out only boosting you a very short amount of space, but you would also gradually unlock more power-ups for the boost. I want to make sure that the core of the game is simple, because I think any good platformer has a tight core. I think this is something that whenever I see a platformer that is not done very well at all, whenever I see a platformer that I don't like, and that is also not liked by others, what I notice is that the actual core of the game just doesn't gel well. A platformer is a game about getting from point A to point B, and that journey is supposed to be extremely fun. And that journey is made up of jumps over various obstacles in various combination, and that is the absolute core of what a platformer is. And if that's not fun, if getting from point A to point B is not fun, either because the obstacles are bullshit, or because the game doesn't control fine, or because it's any combination of that, or because it looks weird and you can't quite see where exactly you're supposed to go, if anything like that is wrong and the core gameplay loop that the game provides is terrible, that you're having a terrible platformer no matter what happens. Even if you have really good music, even if everything looks really great, for example, you can't save that at that point. Even if there's like 100 hours of content, nothing can save a platformer that has a terrible core gameplay. So I want to make sure when I start off making my game, that the core gameplay is as enjoyable as it can be. If I put my character in spot A and I tell myself I want to get to spot B, I want to make sure that that act of getting from that one side of the screen to the other side of the screen is as fun as it can be. So in order to facilitate that, I'll make sure that the jump feels responsive, the double jump makes sense and also feels responsive. I want to be able to double jump at any point in your jump. There's a handful of platforms you can only double jump at certain points in your jump. Good thing that has never caught on, because that's terrible game design. So, and then you can also boost at any point in your jump. I want to make sure that the physics are responsive, and that the physics, how I'm going to say that the physics always behave as deterministically as possible as you can make it in a game where you have a double jump and a boost, where obviously there's gonna be some difference between exactly when you press the button to jump, to double jump, and to boost. There are gonna be some differences maybe, but I wanna make sure that, for example, I don't want to make this thing too much about weird momentum where you jump upwards and then boost left. If you jump up and boost left, you do like a weird curve movement. I mean, I could do stuff like that, but I think that would ultimately not serve the game, because it would make the game too complex. And if you think to yourself, okay, I want to like jump forwards and then boost to the left to like curve my way around a spike, for example, and then you try that like 5 times and it only works like once, and you think to yourself, well, this is bullshit. I don't want stuff like that. If you boost in a direction, I'm not quite 100% sure exactly how I'm going to do this, but I'm probably going to try and see that maybe you can conserve forward momentum. That if you can repeatedly jump boost forwards, you would get really fast and you could keep that momentum, and then maybe you could spike that momentum upwards by like dashing into a wall and then sliding upwards the wall, and then you could keep that momentum and carry it forward with you. That's maybe something that I'm looking into, conserving momentum. But I'm not looking into trying to like curve your way around with like these, like trying to have realistic physics. I would never try and have realistic physics in a game like this, because that would hinder the game so much. There's some creaking going on behind me. So that's basically what I'm trying to achieve with this idea. And when you look at a stage, you would maybe think to yourself, okay, I'm on a platform, there's like another platform in front of me, but it's full of spikes, and there's a third platform to the right. I could just jump to the spiky platform, do a double jump, and then use the boost to get me all the way to the third platform. Maybe you don't even need to use a second jump. Maybe you can just do a jump, then boost the way, and after that you can still ask yourself, well, am I going to hit the platform now, or do I need my second jump? And then you can use the second jump at that point, and you've got a bit more control. Like if you use the jump last, you get a bit more control than if you do the boost last. Everything at this point is still quite normal. I mean, if we're just boosting forwards or we're just boosting upwards, many games have done that before. Almost any platform that has a dash move has something like that, where you can like do boost dash upwards or do dash to the other side. And I mean, to some degree, Mischief Makers has kind of done something like this as well. Even though Mischief Makers is a really odd game, Though I would say that Mischief Makers is probably the easiest comparison because that also has a second stick, well, C buttons that like dash you in weird directions, but that's not really an important part of the game and you're not really using it. Mischief Makers is a very weird game because there's many weird aspects that glue together in very weird ways. I love the game, don't get me wrong. I think Mischief Makers is one of the most underrated games in the entire N64 library, right next to Glover. Glover is a great game if you're good at the game. I'm gonna have to bring this up as well because Glover is the kind of game that I could have seen myself make if I was a game developer for the N64. Glover kind of game that I would have made. Though I would also say that it fails in a very important aspect. Glover fails at actually making sure that the player gets made to understand exactly how all the controls work, how all the physics work, how all of that intertwines, and how basically it's almost like playing Glover is like trying to compose a symphony where you need to understand absolutely everything that's going on and how everything links together. And the game doesn't quite make sure that you understand that. So if you just play Glover and you boot the game up and you like run around a bit and you like try and beat a level, it's very frustrating. Glover is a very frustrating game if you aren't good at Glover. But once you get good at Glover, you understand how to control the physics, how to control the ball, how there's actually like 10 million ways of controlling your character. Okay, maybe not 10 million, but like at least 10. There's at least 10 ways of controlling your character in that game that I guarantee you, if you've played Glover before, you have never seen that. Kind of stuff like, did you know that you can high jump in Glover by stomping on your ball? What the fuck? There's like so much crazy stuff that is hidden in Glover that I'm personally such a big fan of. Like people always say when they say play Super Metroid, in Super Metroid there's some crazy Shine Spark combos that you never really know about until you see a speedrun and you go, oh my god, you can do that? People don't know about Crystal Flash, kind of stuff like that. Like, how many people know about Crystal Flash in Super Metroid? Like, it's a super hidden game mechanic. Glover also has really super hidden game mechanics that actually help you out a lot in the game, but the game never tells you. Anyway, this is kind of a tangent on what I'm trying to avoid, that even though there is a bunch of cool stuff hidden everywhere, and once you know everything, you can use that to basically view the game in a completely different way. But I also want to make sure that the player always has all the tools they need to have a fun and entertaining experience and are just able to get through everything without getting too frustrated. I think that's very important to me. Like, of course, I'm not trying to make a casual game. The game that I'm gonna make, or at least that I'm gonna try and make, is the kind of game where I'm trying to make it easy to pick up and very hard to master. Because I think when you think about really difficult speedruns, for example, you don't think about games for speedruns. You don't think about speedruns for games that are super difficult. Like maybe you do. Maybe you think about something like I want to be the guy, or I want to be the Boshi, or Dark Souls. Interestingly enough, speedrunning Dark Souls is actually not that difficult. Dark Souls, surprisingly, to some people surprisingly, not surprising to me, Dark Souls is not actually that difficult of a speedrun to do. A lot of really difficult speedruns are just games that have a lot of depth, like Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey, that's difficult. That's really difficult. Just because, even though the game itself, you wouldn't say that's like a super difficult, hyper difficult game like Dark Souls or whatever. But because the game has so much depth, it's really hard to get really good at the game because there's so much stuff to do. And of course, recently I just played Smash Bros. Ultimate. Of course, Smash Bros. Ultimate is a very deep game by design of it being a fighting game. It's also the kind of game where you can give that game to someone and they can play it and they can enjoy the game even if they're shit at it. But once they get really good, they can do some absolutely crazy stuff that like blows everything else out of the water. And that's the kind of experience I'm looking for. And I think that's also how you make really enticing, difficult games, actually. This sounds weird, but this is how you make difficult games, is by making the controls really deep, and people who want to dive that deep, they will try to grasp all of the possibilities that the controls give them to play the game faster and faster. And by trying to play the game faster using more complex controls, that's what creates difficulty. But if you don't want to do that, you're still gonna have a fun and enjoyable experience, because I'm gonna try and make sure that just the act of boosting is as enjoyable as possible. But back to the control scheme that I was talking about. So you can jump, double jump, boost in all the directions, do it on the ground, do it in midair, and what I want to do is that I would gradually build on that. So you would like just play with the stuff that I just mentioned now for a fair bit of time, maybe like an hour or whatever. Maybe less, probably less actually, like half an hour maybe, depends. I haven't really started working on the game too much, which is why I'm not showing anything to you right now, because I don't have anything to show. But what I think of, maybe for like half an hour or so you play with just the basic examples, and then maybe you put some more stuff in the game. Maybe you start the game out not being able to double jump, and then you acquire a double jump, and then the game teaches you, hey, you don't have to just jump, double jump, and then boost. Maybe you do a jump, boost, and then do the double jump. Maybe you run off a cliff by boosting, and then I'm gonna say, well, if you boost off a cliff, I'm gonna need to do both jumps. You can boost off a cliff and then do jump, jump. I'm not sure this is gonna make it in the game like that in the final version, but this is something that I'm considering. Or maybe you don't want to jump off a cliff, maybe you just want to jump down a cliff, like jump down a shaft or whatever, and then at the bottom of the shaft you like boost yourself upwards and then you jump to the side or whatever. Because you're like trying to go through an opening that is at the bottom of the thing. So maybe something like that, maybe like try and get the player to understand, hey, you can do some crazy combos with that. And then later on, I would say, okay, now I'm gonna give you 2 boosts before you have to touch the ground. Maybe 3 boosts. I don't know how many I'm gonna do the maximum, but maybe you're gonna unlock more boosts as the game goes on, and maybe you're gonna learn some more abilities. I'm gonna make sure that you don't learn too many completely new abilities, as in now you can't just jump and double jump and boost, but I'm gonna give you a 4th or a 5th like core mechanic that I'm gonna just put in there because I can, because there's still buttons left in the controller to use. But rather I want to make sure that everything that I'm going to give you expands on jump, double jump, boost. So maybe I'm going to say I'm going to give you the ability, maybe some of those abilities will already be part of the game, you just don't know it yet, where you could maybe use some combos. Maybe if you, for example, run forwards on the ground and dash like backwards into the ground, like diagonally backwards into the ground, maybe that would be like a roll backwards. Maybe you could do a really fast roll backwards. That would put your boost on cooldown for like half a second or whatever, but that you could maybe use against some of the enemies. Maybe I'm gonna put some enemies in there that have some fast attacks where, of course, you can just, if you see them winding up the attack, maybe you can just take a step back, jump back and dash back, or maybe you just keep attacking. Like, I'm gonna make sure this is very simple. I'm gonna put anything too crazy in the combat. I wanna have combat in the game because I think there's more cool ways that I can explore the idea of moving in a jump run with the idea of boosting as the core gameplay mechanic, because I think you can do some really crazy stuff with combat as well. Of course, if you're really good, you can just jump past them. I mean, of course, I'm not gonna make finding mandatory, but maybe you can get some cool stuff with it. I really don't know exactly yet. I'm still working on all of that. But maybe, like for example, like I said with the example, maybe the enemy is winding up the attack. You could either move away sooner and do something else, or maybe you just run past them because you don't care. Or if you know the roll command, maybe the roll gives you invincibility frames, so you can attack the guy and then use the action roll backwards to dodge the attack as it comes towards you. And that would be a way of telling you, well, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do the roll to fight the enemy. You can just move away sooner and then come back afterwards. Or if you know the command, you can do some crazy stuff. This is sort of the style that I'm going for. You don't need to have it, but if you have it, you can do some absolutely crazy stuff. And maybe there could be some more commands. Maybe if you are jumping upwards and then dashing downwards, you could do like a stomp attack that will maybe have an AoE attack on the ground that you could use to dispatch enemies with. And maybe with an upgrade, you can maybe stomp through some glass floors or whatever. And I can do a whole bunch of stuff with that. Maybe if you like double boost forwards, you get a little bit extra distance than if you did like upwards and then right boost. Maybe that one wouldn't give you quite as much distance on like the second boost. Like if you if you boost multiple times in the same direction, maybe every consecutive boost would maybe be a little bit stronger. Maybe something like that. Like I want to really try and build on that idea on how to use the boosting as a way of moving throughout the world, but also creating interesting mechanics that I can use to create levels around, while also making sure that the stuff we're doing is quite simple and not too bad. The doorbell just rang and I'm back. So anyway, that's basically it for the controls, or at least the idea behind the controls that I have. I'm gonna try and work really hard to make sure that this actually makes it like this into the game. This is, I think, also where most of the development time is going to go into, making sure that this core gameplay is as enjoyable as possible. And I think this is where you should put most of your time developing a game, making sure the core is as enjoyable as it can be. Now, if you will, I don't know, I haven't said this exactly yet, but the second, I said this was a dual stick jump run. The second stick would be the boost stick. So you have one stick that moves you around normally, and the second stick would boost you. So if you're wondering earlier, like I said, oh, you walk forwards and you dash backwards. How do you even do that with one control stick? Well, that's why you use two control sticks. This, of course, sounds like it could make the game very difficult to control correctly. And that's exactly why I'm going to make sure to just gradually build it up. It would be a very gradual increase in how you have to use the controls. Like I said at the very start, maybe you just do jump, boost, jump. If you just do jump, forward, boost, jump, I think you can get used to that fairly quickly. Like jump and then I mean, you wouldn't have to do it too fast. Like you're not doing like you would jump with shoulder buttons, by the way. You wouldn't do like run forwards, and then if this is jump, you wouldn't jump. You wouldn't try and like do some crazy flicking like this unless you were speedrunning. But maybe you would do like jump, boost, jump. I think that's, even if you're not very good at video games, I think you should be able to get used to that rather quickly if the levels are designed to introduce them to you in a slow but mannered pace. And this is also something that I'm aiming towards in the level design, to make sure that I'm going to gradually get you used to the game. Okay, this is how you use the game, this is how you use the controls of the game to go through the world, and then I'm just going to slowly ramp up the difficulty while also giving you a bit more tools to use. And then maybe after you've played the game for like 10 hours or whatever, it might not be that much content, but maybe if you've played the game for a really long time, then you might do the crazy stuff where your hands just fly over the controller as you do all sorts of crazy stuff. And yeah, that's hopefully what I'm aiming towards. Of course, it's easy to say all of that stuff, but to actually make all of that happen in the game is not going to be very easy. But then again, because this is like indie development, I mean, I'm just one guy, but I guess you would call it indie, I can do whatever I want, and I have enough time to do anything I want, because, right, like I've got my master's studies coming up and I have a part-time job, but because I have a part-time job, I have enough money to not worry about like getting kicked out onto the streets or whatever. Like if none of this actually ever works, or even if the game that I make ends up being free to play, it doesn't matter. Like I don't have to worry about financial stuff at all, because I have a part-time job and I'm like still at university, so some of the stuff is being covered by the state anyway that I like live here with, so I'm fine. Anyway, coming back to the idea of game design and more importantly level design, I've made a lot of videos about level design, for example in Ukulele and in Hat in Time, and I've made some basic level design videos talking about ideas on how to create levels. And this was mostly about 3D level design, but I think 2D level design, well, I know 2D level design still has the same core principles, just applied differently. So I think I'm going to be fine trying to apply all the stuff that I've learned over the years when it comes to good level design and bad level design, and trying to craft something that satisfies people and also satisfies me, of course. I'm not going to try and make a game that just tries to cater to as many people as possible. I want to make sure the game that I make is also something that I personally enjoy a lot. And if it's a game that I personally enjoy a lot, I think even if not that many other people like it, I'll still be okay. So for the level design, of course, I would be more interested in trying to explore cool themes than just trying to add a ton of content, like add a billion secrets and all of that stuff, or trying to make it as big and expansive as possible. I don't know. I also don't think that I'm gonna be aiming too much to make stuff look really cool. I mean, it sounds weird saying I don't want to make stuff look cool. I mean, I do want to make stuff look cool, but I know that I can't do that, at least not without a dedicated designer, like a graphic designer, which I don't have. Right now, it's just me. It's really just me. Maybe some point down the line, someone's gonna be like, hey, I want to help out with the game, and I'll make graphics for you. Maybe then I can say like, okay, we're gonna make stuff look cool. But right now, it's not really planned to try and make stuff look cool. I'm just rather interested in what sort of themes can we employ in our level design. Maybe I'll have a level where you just go through the level normally, and then halfway through you get like the ability to like break, like I said earlier, like break glass or whatever. And maybe all the way up until then, there's been a ton of glass, and now you can suddenly, all of these rooms that you've gone through, maybe now all of them, you can connect in completely different ways with by breaking the glass, and it actually opens up a new way in an older room where you've been to. But not just that, now you've also created all of these different kinds of shortcuts that lead you all over the place, where before maybe you were snaking around through the level. Now suddenly everything is completely open, and you can go from any room to any room you desire. Maybe I'll do something like this. And then maybe after I decided on the gameplay aspect, like I would usually start out trying to either think of two cool ideas that I can merge visually, or a gameplay idea that I can then structure something around. And this idea, like right now I just thought about a gameplay idea, and then I could think to myself, what visually, or what sort of idea would constitute there being lots of these glass panes around, or maybe it's not glass, but some breakable other brick or whatever. I don't know yet, but I'm thinking to myself, what would constitute that? Maybe you're in a canyon, and all the walls are very not all the walls, but some of the walls are like brittle and cracked. Maybe something like that. Or maybe you're in like a factory, and maybe a lot of stuff is moving, and there's like glass panes, and then you can break through them. Like this is sort of something that I'm going to try and look at, to sort of take an idea, either take a gameplay idea and then structure something around it, or I take two ideas that I'm trying to like merge in my head. Like something that I always bring up as an example for this is maybe I have the idea of castle, and then maybe idea of water, and then I merge them together. How do you merge together water and castle? Maybe you enter a castle, and through the windows you see there's water everywhere. Maybe the windows break at some point and water floods into the castle. Maybe something like that could happen. Maybe you would have like controlling the water level. I don't know about water yet. I might want to do some stuff with water, but I'm not quite sure yet. This is something that I'm not too sure about yet. But maybe this is also another way of creating cool ideas for levels, and then maybe you come up with gameplay ideas after that, where you say to yourself, maybe if we have boosting and water, maybe there's a way of boosting across water and then jumping up. Like maybe, let's say there's a pool on the water, and like right above the pool there's like a ceiling with spikes or whatever. Okay, picture this way. You have a platform, some water below, then maybe like a pillar of spikes in the middle. I'm not gonna just make the entire game full of spikes, of course, but just picture this. So it would be the spikes that goes down, water below, another platform on the other side. How do you do this? You could try and think of a way, but what I think is what would be the best way is maybe you jump down and then you dash on the water, and maybe you can diagonally dash into the water, and it creates like a sort of, like maybe you dash on the water, do like a water run or whatever. Maybe that could be a combo that you get by diagonally dashing into water. You get like a water run for a bit, and then at the end you jump out and make it to the platform. Maybe that's something you can do. Maybe if there's no water there, you can't do that because your boosts are just not enough to make it. But maybe if you're really good, not maybe really good, maybe if you come back at some other point with a second boost. Maybe when you first get there, you only have one boost. Maybe at some other point, you manage to do a sequence break, and you manage to acquire a second boost before you even get to the place where you're supposed to use the water. Maybe there's no water there. Maybe it's part of the puzzle to put water there so that you can do it with one boost. But if you have two boosts already, you can make it anyway. I don't mind. Do it. I don't mind it. If you can do that, do it. Like, I'm not gonna aim to make it up. You don't aim to put sequence breaks in your game, because if you don't artificially try to create speedrun stuff. It just doesn't work. Just try to make the controls as deep as possible, and then it just will happen. People will find sequence break if you have really crazy deep controls, and you also don't try to force the player down a single path really hard. Don't try to force the player down the path really hard and put invisible walls everywhere. You're not supposed to be here. Invisible wall in front of you. Get out. If you don't do that and you just make deep controls, people are gonna find sequence breaks. It's just gonna happen. And of course, there's also gonna be bugs and glitches. Of course, I'm not gonna try to have bugs and glitches in the game. But if people find it, and it's something that an average player would not find, then I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's part of the game, you know? So yeah, maybe that's something how the game could evolve. But for now, all of that is just ideas that I'm throwing around. I also don't have anyone to do music, but no, maybe you can find some free-to-use music, or maybe I can do something. I have like MuseScore, and if I have a lot of time, I can maybe use a few months to be like, hey, let's try and create some simple music. It wouldn't be anything special, but yeah. So yeah, that's basically it. I'm gonna try to create I'm gonna do all the like game design. I'm gonna do game design as in conceptual design, not as in like graphic design. That's like two different things. People always think game design means you actually draw stuff on a board and then say like, this is my game. No, game design is more about conceptual ideas. And so I'm doing the conceptual ideas, I'm doing level design. I'm basically being the central game developer that actually like also programs everything. Oh, by the way, I'm using, now I've said all of this, maybe I'm gonna say something right now that's gonna make a lot of you people go, well fuck, but I'm gonna do it in Java. Okay, now that all of you have sighed and groaned, I don't actually think there's a problem here. I for example, doing my part-time job actually has me programming stuff in Java, so I know my way around Java kind of pretty well right now. I've worked for over a year now as a software developer, so I kind of know my stuff around Java. And I've also found an engine recently, the Liti engine, L-I-T-I engine. It's got absolutely no documentation. Like, I have no idea what anything does. I'm like reading the source code. Basically, I'm reading the source code of that engine right now, trying to figure out what's going on, but I think I can make this work, especially because I'm not trying to have like a billion particle effects and everything, like, or I'm not trying to have like super high fidelity graphics. I think just doing it in Java is totally fine. Maybe I'm not gonna, like I said, it's not gonna look super duper impressive. Maybe it's not gonna have super duper crazy effects, but this is not what I'm aiming for. I'm not aiming for that. And because of that, I'm doing it in Java because I'm just so used to it, and that's why I'm doing that. So yeah, that was pretty much all I wanted to say for now for my first, the 0th entry in my developer diary. I'm saying this is not really the first because I haven't really started work on the game yet. Like, I'm still getting used to the engine that I'm using. I'm still making a lot of notes here and there on what I want to do, and I'm basically getting used to how I'm gonna go about this and making some preliminary plans. And then the next one, I'm hopefully gonna be able to tell you guys like, hey, I've started work on this and this and that. But for now, it's all just ideas that hopefully will come to fruition someday. So yeah, if you have anything to talk about, of course, write me a comment below. Don't send me a direct message, those never actually work. Send me a comment, put it in the comments below. And yeah, that was about that. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.